Hey guys, welcome in this new video. I hope that all of you are doing great. So in this video, we're going to do something quite different than what I've done recently on my YouTube channel. So I'm going to bring you guys along in my trading and show you my best trade of 2021. It's also one of my best trade ever. So it was on natural gas. And so I'm basically going to break down everything for you guys. So I'm going to talk about the fundamental analysis, the technical analysis, when I got in the trade, when I got out of the trade, and what were the reasons for doing so. So I'm really going to give you guys a lot of information. It will be very, very valuable. So make sure that you stick all the way until the end of the video because I'm just going to give you guys so much knowledge for free in the shortest amount of time. So I'm pretty excited for that. As I said, it's not something that I do too much on YouTube. It's more something that I reserve for the course and for our students. So of course, in the program that we have, we go on the market and we trade with our members every day. We have the trading group and stuff like that, right? But on YouTube, it's not something that I do too often. But today I thought, why not just do this for you guys for free? And hopefully you will learn a lot. So, we'll get into this. So just before that we start, as always, guys, don't forget to leave a like under the video and also subscribe to the channel if it's not already done. And if I see that there are a lot of likes and a lot of positive feedback on this video, then I will see that you guys like these kind of videos and I will not hesitate to do more in the future, show you guys more about my trades and stuff like that. So this will be really the best indication for me if you guys want to see more of that or not. As simple as that. All right, so enough talking, let's get into the trade. So natural gas, right? This is the chart that we have here. So first of all, I'm going to show you guys when I got in my first position because there were two positions in total for this trade. And I'm going after that to, of course, show you guys the analysis and stuff like that, right? So actually, let's, let me show you guys the entry as I said, and then I'll explain how I was able to get in the trade around these levels. So my first entry for this trade, if we zoom in, it was just right here. So when the price broke above this level here, this is where I got in the trade. If you look at the date, which we have right here, it was right at the beginning of 2021. So it was one of my first trade of the year as well. So this is where I got in the trade as a starter position. And then I added to my position right here. So these were the two trades on natural gas. And after that, I was able to get out of these two trades around these lows right here when the price started to break a lot of obstacles. So again, I will show you guys all of that in details, but that is just to put you guys in context of when I got in the trade and around what levels. So two positions, very, very low, right? And then I was able to ride this whole move to the upside. So let's start with the technical analysis, just to show you guys basically where the price was trading. And then I'm going to give you guys the fundamental context of all of this, right? So first of all, of course, to do the technical analysis, we start on the higher time frame. And then the goal is simply to try to notice important stuff. So we can remove the moving averages for now. And this is the chart that we have, right? And let's also keep the indicators, okay? So what can we notice on this chart? What can we look for? Well, first of all, there was a couple of trend lines that were interesting to have on the chart. The first one would be from this high right here, which is the all-time high. And if we connect it like that, what we can see is that, well, we have this touch right here, we have this touch, and we have this touch right here. And so as you guys can see, the price at some point was able to break above the trend line and we had a big acceleration from here. So this was really one thing that I was paying attention myself. And then something else that was really interesting to notice on the chart was this kind of bottoming pattern here. And so what I mean by that is that, as you guys can see, here we had really big pushes to the downside, but around these levels here, this is where the market really started to move a lot more slowly. And look what happened in the past, right? That is extremely, extremely important for you guys to understand here. So we made this low, right? Then we came back up and we went back down. And look at what happened here. We broke very slightly the low and then we reversed, all right? Let's see what happened with this low. We broke it very slightly and then we reversed. So let's see what happened with this low. We broke it very slightly and then we reversed, right? So when the price was trading around these lows, I already had seen this pattern on the market. And I knew that the highest probability scenario would be a reversal based, well, not only on this, right? But this was one of the reasons. So this is a very, very strong pattern. It's a pattern that I cover in, again, the course. This is what we call a channel. And this pattern has many particularities, but one of them is that the market always will tend to either break some lows or break some highs before that it reverses. And this has to do with order flow and with liquidity and stuff like that. So I'm not going to go into the details of this because it's too long and it doesn't serve the purpose of the video, which is simply to talk about the trade here. But it's really important for you guys to look for these lows, to look for certain highs on the markets, right? And to understand how the participants, the other traders, will look at these lows and how they will position themselves based on that, right? So this is really important here to understand that when we broke this low, this is where I started to look for a reversal. I was not looking for a reversal before breaking the low, right? I really had to wait for this low to be broken, and then I could wait for the reversal simply because the market would follow along with its pattern. After that, something else interesting to notice here as well is that we were starting to get some divergence on the indicators, right? So we can see this here on the RSI and we can see this here on the MACD, right? So if we look at this low here and this low here, they are lower. When it comes to the indicators, well, these two lows, again, here they are higher, and same thing for the MACD. So the price and the indicators are diverging. And in this case, the indicator is more telling than the price, which means that, again, the probabilities for a reversal in terms of technical analysis were quite high. And then after that, if we just look very simply at the chart, I mean, well, look at this chart, right? We had a long term base right here. We had a big move to the upside, and we had a big correction here all the way back to the first base that we had here, right? So I mean, you know, the point here that I'm bringing is that the price was trading around just a bit above 1, right? It was trading at around 1.5 on the futures contract. And so, well, after that, there is 0, right? So my point here is that when the price broke under this low, there is not much room for it to play with, right? For the downside. I mean, it's quite limited. And this is really the kind of opportunity that are amazing, simply because if it's limited like that, then at some point, again, it's likely going to reverse. So this was really the long-term chart view. And this was my analysis. It doesn't get much more complex than this, to be quite honest. So one thing that we could also have on the chart, let's go now on the daily, is simply this previous low marked as well. So just for us to keep in mind that this was important for the market to break, right? After that, one trade I didn't talk about with you guys so far is another position that I had on natural gas, which unfortunately closed, but I was also able to get in a trade on natural gas around these levels here. So my first really buy on natural gas was around here. So pretty much at the low, right? And so the way that I was able to get in this trade, I'll not explain this in this video simply because there's already a video on my YouTube channel that I go over this trade. You guys can go back around the summer of 2020 and you will find a video 1 month in the life of a retail trader. And in this video, you guys will see me take this trade and what happened with it after that. So that's why I'm not really covering this one or explaining it. You guys already have a video where you will see me trade this live. So that's the idea, right? But this was basically the context, right? And so here, as I said, this was the first place where I got in the trade, right? So now let's put back the moving averages. And so you will see that the reason and how I got in the trade was relatively simple, right? So in terms of technicals, right, what we had at that point is that we had a uptrend right here. So the market was starting to go back up from the lows, which was a good sign. As I said right before, I was expecting a break of the monthly low and then a beginning of an uptrend, right? And this is what we had. So this was looking good. And right here, the price was making a correction, right? So we had a down move, we had a up move, we had a down move, a up move, and a down move, right? So the market was correcting. And when the market was able to go back up from here and break above this level here, well, this is where it was going to end this little correction, or the downtrend if you want. And then, well, this was potentially the sign that the market was going back into an uptrend. And so when the price broke above this level, this is where I got in the trade as my first position. And I had a stop loss under this level right here. So we can actually have a line now just to identify the stop loss. Let's put this red. So you guys will follow along with me, right? So I got in the trade here. And then after that, as you guys can see, the market made a pullback here, and then it was able to go back up. So again, if you guys know a bit about my trading, you know that I'm a trend follower. I ride trends. I stick with the market as long as I can, and I just let it play out. So we had a pullback here, and when the market was able to go back up here and again break above this high, now we have higher points right on the chart. And so what I was able to do was move my stop loss from here to this point here. So that's what I did. So my stop loss was now here, okay? So we had this up move here, and then we had a big correction right here. So another down move here, all right? And here we started to stabilize. The market went very close to actually take me out of my first position, but I was able to hold in the trade, and then it was able to go back up. And so as you guys can see, you know, here we already have one really important lesson about this trade, is simply that I got in the trade here, right? And the market for months really didn't do anything, right? Because this is a daily chart. And so what this shows is that patience is really, really important. Sometimes you will get in the trade and it's not going to play out automatically, right? And that's perfectly fine. That's normal. I mean, sometimes the market do take their time, right? So you have to be really, really patient, and you need to trust your own system, right? If I would have, let's say, closed the trade anywhere around here for no real reason, then I would have lost a lot of profit along the way, right? So the goal is to stick to the system. It's to respect your rules, and it's to just be patient overall, right? And so that is really, really important. And so here something really interesting started to develop. What I need to add as well on the chart is this trend line right here. So taking this low with this one, then we also had this low here with the moving average. Here it kind of went a bit under the trend line, but overall it really kind of just played around here. And overall, right, I would say that the moving average was still holding the price. So this was still looking pretty decent. And so something interesting was starting to build up on the natural gas market. And what I mean by that is that if we go back a second on the higher time frame, well, this is the longer term chart, right? And so if we look at, you know, this spike here in price, this one here, this one here, this one here, here, right? All these big price movement that went very, very fast and that are sharp on the market. More often than not, these price movements will occur between, I would say, somewhere around October to December, January. And the reason why is simply because the natural gas market, in terms of fundamental, is a heavily dependent on the weather. And the reason why is simply because natural gas is really used for heating purposes, right? And so if, for example, we have a really cold winter, or we are expecting to have a cold winter, then it's simply going to increase the demand for natural gas. So that's the idea, and it's really important to understand that. So this was one of the things that I was starting to pay attention, because we were getting closer and closer to this kind of range, if you want, where most of the time natural gas tends to go up. And if it does, well, it can go up very sharply, because if we have a cold winter, then the demand for natural gas will rise quite a lot. And again, right, supply and demand market will go up based on this, right? So this was one of the most important fundamental thing that I was paying attention to. And of course we had, you know, which I didn't talk too much for the moment about, right? But we had all the main fundamental events that we have since the COVID pandemic, right? So we have, and we had at that time, right, still quantitative easing. We had a lot of money flowing into the market. Risk trades were going back a lot higher, right? Simply because, well, we had initially the pandemic, the Fed reacted on this, they pushed a lot of liquidity, the market went back up. So the reasoning was simply, well, if the market cannot go down more, even after a worldwide pandemic, what will make the market go down? Well, The answer is pretty much nothing, right? And really, since the pandemic, this has been my thinking for fundamentals, right? Really the big themes, and it has worked super, super well. And it was the same thing for natural gas, right? At the end of the day, natural gas is just another commodity, right? Between so many others, right? And it's really important, to understand that. So in terms of fundamentals, right, as you guys can see, I'm really explaining you right now the points, but it's not that much more complex than this, right? It was a relatively simple fundamental trade. Again, I had this main and long-term fundamental view, but in terms of really fundamental for this trade particularly, it was really about more the supply and the demand for natural gas, which is also really dependent on the weather aspect of it, right? And so as you guys can see, if we go back to the daily chart, well, what started to happen on this chart is simply that the market was starting to get squeezed between this trend line, right, and these moving averages and the upper trend line that I had since the beginning here. So as you guys can see, we kind of had overall a up move to here, right? Of course, we had this low with the trend line, and then the market really started to squeeze around here, right? It was starting to get smaller and smaller. And so what that means that at some point, if the market is able to break to the upside, then it's going to break out of a contraction and it's going to potentially lead to a massive move, and that's what happened. And as you guys can see here, I was really early in the move, right? Simply because my second position was taken right here. So as you guys can see, we had a up move here, and then we had a little correction right there. And so when the market broke above this correction here, this is where I got in my second position, and I used a stop loss the same as this one that I already had. So this was my second position. As you guys can see, I was quite early, right? I took the trade in May, even though I said that most of the time it will tend to go up more around October to January. But I was really aware of this, and my thinking again was simply that if the market is able to actually break out right now out of the contraction phase, and then we see a big push through October, well, if we have a cold winter, if we have low supply and high demand, and if we are already into a big uptrend, well, this could lead to a ridiculously high and big price movement, and that is exactly what happened. So this was my thinking, what I got in the trade, and it played out perfectly, right? So this was my second position here. And as you guys can see, not only did we have broken above this flag, but we were also trading above now this trend line here. So the market broke above here again. And as you guys can see here, it tried to break, it failed. Here it tried to break, it failed. But here we broke and we made a correction. So the market was able now to sustain above the trend line. And this is really, really, really important to understand. Then after that, we broke. This is where I got in the trade. This was the confirmation for me that the market was now able to push higher the trend line. We were above all of these obstacles here. So I used a stop loss under the last meaningful daily low, which was still right here. So this is how I got in my second position. So at that point, I have this position here and I have this position here, right? And so then after that, it was just about riding the trend. So now I basically had done the technical analysis, right? I showed you guys a long-term picture of it. I showed you what was happening, with the trend line, the contractions, the moving averages. And actually, right, in terms of technical analysis, it didn't get that much more complex than this, right? It's really that straightforward. And so after that, what I did is that once I was in this trade, I simply followed the trend, right? And so after that, well, let's see what happened, right? So the market made a pullback, then we went back up. When the market was able to break above this high, so around here, this is when I considered this as a daily low, and when I moved the two stop loss, so this one, and I moved the stop loss simply under this low. So this is what happened here. After that, so the market made a up move here. I didn't consider this a daily low. That is too small for me. But then after that, as you guys can see, the market made a correction right here, and then we broke again higher to the upside. And so here I did consider that as a daily low. And so I moved my stop loss under this correction right here. So then after that, what happened? Well, again, right, we had a push here to the upside. We got another correction here. when the market broke above this correction here, this is where I was able to move my stop loss under this low right here. And then this is where things really started to get a bit crazy for natural gas, and where we really had to, a big move on the market, right? And so this is basically the energy crisis that we are still kind of in right now. The market is a bit more relaxed at the time, right? But we are still in the middle of this energy crisis. It's there a bit in US, but it's much more present in Europe. And so I will also show you guys the natural gas chart in Europe. I can show you this right now. You'll see that it's pretty insane. So this is the Dutch, right? So look at this chart, right? The market went a lot further than the natural gas in the US, and same thing for the UK natural gas, right? I mean, look at this chart. Look at how ridiculous that is, right? So it's natural gas, right? It's just priced in Europe, and so we have kind of the same structure, right, if you want, than the one in the US, but this one simply went much further than the one in the US, right? So I didn't trade it through the European market. I only traded through the US market. But this would have been also an insane trade, right? So really, really crazy moves on natural gas, even more in Europe, because the energy crisis is much more present there as well. The supply for natural gas and oil as well, right? They are extremely tight. They are very, very at risk. And this is why the market moves so much, simply because we not only have low supply, but we also have the, again, expectation that winter will probably be quite cold, right? And so low supply, very high demand. This is what happens to a market like that, right? So the market really started to go crazy at some point. And that's why I'm a trend follower, right? When you just ride the trend, when you just stick with the market, well, what happens is that you can simply ride the trend and stick with these moves, right? I didn't take any profit along the way. I simply waited until the trend was over. Okay, so then after that, right, what happened? We had this big push to the upside, we had this pullback, and we had another one. So I moved my stop loss under this level here. And this is where basically I let my stop loss, because here the market was starting to make a correction. And so I'm out of the trade right now of natural gas. It took me out around these lows. So that's basically how the trade ended up to be. And as you guys can see, the reason why I got out of the trade is because, one of the key concepts that I cover in the course and that I really use in my trading is simply that there is different ways to define a trend. And at any moment in a market, a trend can be defined by a different thing, but you have to understand what this thing is and how to look at it. So let me show you guys this example, right? So on natural gas, we had this trend here. So the question is, how was the trend defined? The answer is, it was with the 50 moving average. So right here, and right here. And it was with the 50 RSI level, okay? So this is how the trend was defined on this chart at the moment, right? So notice how, again, as I said, it changes, right? If we go back on the higher time frame and we look at this trend here, how was this trend defined? It was with a trend line, right? Very simple. But here on the daily chart, through this up move, the trend was really defined with the 50 moving average and the 50 RSI as the main, indication for the trend, right? And so here, as you guys can see, what happened recently is that the market started to make a contraction here again at the high, right? So instead of making higher points here on the chart, it was not able to break through this one. So it was starting to contract, same thing for this. And then it broke right here through the downside, through the moving average, through the 50 RSI. And so when I saw this is where I decided to get out of the trade, simply because the market is now either redefining the trend and making a bigger correction, or maybe even reversing. These are the two different options that they are now for the market. But the trend that I was riding myself to the upside is now over, which is why I'm out of the trade. So that's basically how I got out. And that's basically the explanation for this trade, right? Something interesting as well that I didn't talk about on natural gas is simply the correlation with oil. I can show you guys this quickly as well, because the video is already long, right? So I don't want to make this too long neither. But if we look at natural gas and then we compare it to oil, okay, well, we can see that they are very similar, right? And it makes sense, right? These two are energy commodity, right? So they have relatively similar fundamentals, right? And they tend to move together overall. And so what was interesting here when I got in my first trades on natural gas is that oil was already at that time trading much higher. It was already back up even above and almost, above this high here, I should say. And so what is interesting with this is that, well, simply natural gas was way behind than oil at some point. And my thought process as well, and again, that's another fundamental point, is simply that natural gas at some point would try to, go back up and follow along with oil. So it was kind of a indirect force, if you want, that could lead natural gas to go up. And so that's the idea. So that's basically it. I really went in a lot of the details here for this trade, and I think I showed you guys everything, right? I didn't forget something important. So we talked about the fundamentals, we talked about the technicals, when I got in the trade, for what reason, how I managed the position when I got out, and we really just saw everything. So as you guys can see, overall, it was a relatively simple trade, at least for me, and in my opinion, right? It's not the hardest trade that I had to make. The first position required a lot of patience. The second one played out much faster, as you guys saw, right? So it was easier, but that's basically it for this trade, right? So overall, the trade lasted quite long, right? So, well, if you guys remember, the first position was at the beginning of 2021, and right now we are at almost the end of 2021, right? So the trade lasted about 10 months, pretty much, and it was really successful. One of my best trade ever, and the best trade definitely of 2021, especially that I had two positions, so it kind of doubles my profit. So that is really, really amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope that you learned something from it as well. I hope that you got a lot of value. There was a lot of things to explain, so I had to really try to regroup all of this in one video. For Reversal Master members, they saw the evolution and the process of this trade week after week after week after week. In the weekly market analysis videos that I do, I share all my trades, so they really saw week after week what I did with this trade, how I manage it and stuff like that. So that's why I always say that, there's so much value in the course simply with these videos, and that's only one part of the course, right? I mean, then after that you have all the other things that come with it. So the educational videos, the trading group, the webinars, my personal help, right, and stuff like that. But just the weekly review videos alone, right, they're super valuable because you really just get to see me trade on a weekly basis. You see all my trades, you see everything that I do on markets, and it's just super transparent, and that's really the way that I always wanted it to be. So enough talking. I hope you guys again enjoyed the video. I hope that you learned a lot. If you did, you can leave a like under the video. I would really appreciate it. And on that, take care, trade with care, manage your money well, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.